Axel. Eyesight is there, the high drive, deep center, go, 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 we're out of here, say ya, playa.
Just like they drew it up in Hollywood, Caladros, the 3-2, swing and a miss! And the Audubon Green Wave have upset the Kingsway Dragons! And this is it for good! The Audubon Green Wave are back in the Final Four! A dog pile on their side!
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to DW Broadcasting's coverage of men's varsity.
From our entire crew, we'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one, folks.
Welcome to Dan Wilkins Broadcasting Headquarters. We have the 2024 to 2025 Basketball Selection Show. I do have a hat on me tonight, but I decided to get a little bit festive for at least the beginning of this show. Everybody on this crew is dying to try to hold their laughter, and it's not working. I've got David Cohen to my right, Jake Steidler behind the camera, and Vincent Vogt at the production spot tonight as we kick off the holiday season with our second selection show. Of course, we did this for football back in June. It was very fun, and we didn't really have to change a lot in terms of what actually happened on the schedule. So I'm very excited. I believe we have close to 25 games on the schedule for this winter. Now, I should say, to preface all of this, that there are some games that we are still working on getting confirmed. We sent out emails to athletic directors. We did the best that we could to get it before the 5th. Excuse me, but we are still working on getting, I think it's 5 or 6 or 7 new games between December and February that we're still working on confirming. So we have the interest there, but when that gets confirmed, we will, when the entire schedule gets confirmed, we will post that on our social medias. But this is just the, I guess you could say, the preview to the madness, if you will. Now, if you remember, last year was our first basketball season, and we had a lot of success, I should say, in our basketball coverage. We had some great playoff games, Cherry Hill East and Cherokee last year. That was a funky one, to say the least. And we also had Bishop Eustace and Gloucester Catholic. That was one of the best games I've covered in a long time. Same with St. Joe's Hamilton and Gloucester Catholic too. We did 2 GC games. We do have some guests tonight that'll be joining us throughout the show. So we hope you guys enjoy the production. It is going to be an excellent night here on DWB. So we are going to get started right away with our first game. So if you remember last year, we started off the season at Gloucester High School. It was our first ever high school basketball game. There's a nice press section up there, and it was a great game. I think Keegan Cohen dropped 20-something points, and Gloucester won, I think it was 73-60 over Lindenwold. Of course, Lindenwold is very different this year, but the theming is still the same. Opening night of the 2024 to 25 basketball season is going to the Gloucester Lions, the recent baseball sectional champions and the basketball sectional champions from a few years back in 2021. They get opening night versus the Woodbury Thundering Herd with Mark DeRogeris Jr. We tried to get him on the show tonight, just didn't work out schedule-wise, but I mean, these are two teams that very similar in their record, but maybe a little bit different in their out of conference schedule. You know, one of the things that I was talking about with DeRogeris as we were going along in conversation this off season was how crazy this non-conference schedule is or will be for Woodbury this year. I mean, he is going off the walls, off the rails, if you will, with his out of conference schedule. And Gloucester obviously is not one of them, but Egg Harbor Township on the 23rd, Archbishop Carroll of Pennsylvania on the 27th, and then he's got Norristown, PA in the first week of January, Wildwood Catholic and Rancocas Valley back to back in mid-January, not to mention January 13th. How about the Patrick School? A national team playing Woodbury? How about it? I mean, you know, DeRogeris, he's a state champion winner with Woodbury in basketball. He left for a few years, went to coach in Philly, still does some AAU work in Philly. Then he came back, and now he's coaching Woodbury this year. So, David, you know, kind of your first prompt of the night. I mean, Woodbury and Gloucester, these are two teams that have always had great games back and forth between each other, two kind of different offensive mindsets. Gloucester likes to go for the 3 ball more, and probably with their senior Michael Light graduating last year, I think the offense is going to run right with Keegan Cohen, the junior, who led all returning South Jersey scores in 3 points per game last year. So your thoughts on that?
For Gloucester first, 15 and 13 record last year, and you mentioned Keegan Cohen. He's returning 11.8 points per game last season and 330 points overall. And then they also have Ryan James returning. So this is going to be a similar team for Gloucester, and uh, I see about the same in record maybe, and they're very similar to Woodbury, and it should be a very good opening night game.
It should be a very good game, and I think that it's gonna show greatly that if if Woodbury's out of conference schedule can really hold up, then I think that that's going to be something that will really propel them forward because they've got R.J. Heigler. They have Jason Solomon still, who is a master with steals. He knows how to flip the ball over on any play, and I don't mean turn the ball over. I mean flip the possession
Yeah.
his way. This is a very proactive offense that I really like how they work. I really like their style. They bring a lot of energy to the table, even if they don't have the biggest amount of size on that team. They know how to get it done, and they know how to get it. They know how to get the job done, whether it's from inside or from deep. So after December 17th, we stay in the area, I should say, because our next game will be another Tri County matchup. Instead of the Colonial on the first night, on night number two, we've got two Colonial teams, both donning the red and gold. It's the Glassboro Bulldogs and the Gloucester Catholic Rams. Two more teams that had very similar records last year. Glassboro sitting at 13 and 13, and like we said, Gloucester around 15 and 13. That seems to be the theme right now. Is these teams are getting 500 records, and they're playing really good schedules. We are hoping to have Brandon Doherty on at some point later tonight. We'll talk about him in just a minute, but Gloucester Catholic had a great run last year. I don't think in the non-public B playoffs anybody was going to get past St. Rose. I don't think
No way.
anybody would ever. Even Bishop Eustace lost to them by like 40 points, so they are no joke. But considering the bracket that they're in, played a lot of heavy competition last year. Um, they had some really good games, like with Washington Township, the return of Coach Todd Powers. They had a lot of great quality talent, and they obviously have Jack Mistero, who reached 1,000 points last year versus Clayton. So he's an incredible scorer. He is so efficient. He is one of the smoothest 3-point jumpers that I've seen in a long time in South Jersey. And he is unfazed, unbothered, if you will. He's the kind of guy that no pressure gets in his head, even in those rivalry games versus, guys like Pittman and Salem. Even in those rivalry games, especially versus Pittman, it doesn't get to his head. So I really like what he's able to do. I really like the fact that he is capable of just kind of doing anything that he wants, and he can drive inside. He can, he's very good at passing the rock too. He's got um, excuse me, Carlos Mendez out there too. He's a great point guard on that team. And, Gloucester Catholic's not all that young, but they're not all that old right now. And Mastero is going to lead the offense in 2025. And I think this will be a good opener for Gloucester Catholic to showcase that.
100%. Mustaro, why not? When you're that good, do what you want on the court. He's going to be the leader of this team. He had 19.2 points per game last year. And Gloucester Catholic, 15 and 13. They lost to Bishop Eustace in the semifinal round, non-public B.
We were there.
Yep. Mustar is going to have to lead this team. They're going to have to try to compete and get past the semifinal round this year. But yeah, like you said, I don't think anybody was beating St. Rose last year. So it's a win-win situation, you could say, for Gloucester Catholic, baby.
It's the best result that they could have had.
Yeah.
That Bishop Eustace championship game, or I should say semifinal game, was basically like a championship for them. Kind of as to like I guess you could say, like in basketball in the last couple of years, like the Group Two semifinals, nobody was going to beat Camden.
Yeah.
And in the Group One this year, Kip Cooper and Pittman. We'll be talking about both of those teams in just a minute, but a lot of people viewed Kip Cooper and Pittman as more of like the penultimate game of the season because they knew that. Whatever controversies were going on with that College Achieve Asbury Park team, whatever you want to call that, um, there was public outcry about that team not being in the private bracket, and instead they played as a public Group One. They steamrolled everybody, and Pittman included. Pittman won the sectional, and that they'll hang that banner in the Rob Waddell gym, but it's not something that I would be too surprised if, especially for Group One. I think Glassboro, I think they were the 5 or 6 seed last year. They are really something great. And Linnell Payne as well. Year one as a head coach, maybe a new direction for Glassboro. But with a season hanging around right around 500, you can go up from here, you can go down from here. There's a lot of different ways where it can go, and that's what I think is going to stand out about this matchup. So next up, we've got another. I guess you could say a deviance from the Group 1 matchups that we've been talking about for a little while now. We've been talking about Woodbury and Gloucester and Glassboro, these very small schools. Let's bring it to the big schools now. We travel up Route 130 on December 19th for a matchup between West Hampton Tech and Pennsauken. It'll be BCIT West Hampton or West Tech, their first DWB appearance, and Pennsauken has had a few in the last couple of months, especially in the football slate. But Pennsauken um, being kind of a return for Coach Bird of West Tech. He's entering his 10th year as a head coach here in South Jersey, and I should say entering year 10 as a head coach for BCIT West Hampton, and a team that went 8-18 last year. Still had their sparks. They still had a lot of guys that could really score the ball well. Dalen Dickerson is somebody that I like to look at, and I think for West Tech, the best thing that they have going for them right now is kind of uh, the the unknown, because they were 10 games under 500 last year. So be it. They lost in the first round of Mainland. It's in that Group 3, Group 4 sector. It's a little hard to get your feet wet there. And Pennsauken, I guess you could say, is the same way with Harrison Garcia. I believe they were 15-11 last year, 15-12, excuse me. They didn't have the best start last year. Now they're trying to rebound off of it, and I think it's considering that both teams kind of had this kind of this rocky start to their seasons last year. We'll see if that trend continues, and especially for the third night of the basketball season, I think that'll be a good standard, a good barrier to set, a good marker for West Tech and Pennsauken.
I'll start with West Hampton Tech. Last year, only one senior on the roster. So, in my opinion, leadership is key in basketball. Leadership is one of the main things you need to be good in basketball. And with more experience and upperclassmen, I think they're going to have that leadership. And in my opinion, for West Hampton Tech, it's only up for them. The 8-18, I think that'll be a much better record this year. See, this season, Group 3 is difficult, but I think they can pull out and improve, especially with the leadership, like I said. In terms of Pennsauken, 15-12, like you mentioned, slow start, 0-3 last year, and then they had stretches where they lost 3 to 4 games. To be successful, especially in Group 4, that can't happen 3 to 4 games in a row. So you have to get rid of those 3 to 4 game stretches and not lose. You have to win 2-2 would be a lot better. And then uh, they got their stars back. Victor Caroseller, who was their top scorer, 13.2 points per game last season, and he's back.
And especially for Pennsauken, I think it's important that, like you said, it's important to keep that confidence high in the team and to keep everybody, in a line, if you will. Harrison Garcia is a great coach, and Pennsauken's a good team. They've had good years, they've had bad years. They're one of those programs that, they've been at the highest of highs and they've been at the lowest of lows. So I don't know if that tradition is exactly going to continue this year, but what I think is important, this is going to be their first, I should say, their biggest test of the early season. So, if West Tech can keep that momentum up, if they can stun Pennsauken a little bit, I know the BCSL has a new opponent this year, Thrive Charter. They're a brand new school. I was hoping to see them for a game this year. Didn't work out in the schedule. Spoiler alert. But, well, I mean, there really can be no spoilers if nothing's been spoiled yet. But
True.
yeah, but Thrive Charter, they're a new opponent in this Burlington County League. I don't know if they have a team name yet, but I think their colors are going to be like purple and gold, almost like Camden a little bit.
They're a brand new school.
It is a brand new school.
Oh,
It's not just a brand new athletic program. It is a brand new school. This is their first year. You can think about it this way: Kip Cooper opened in 2020, and
oh,
they already had
100%.
a sectional championship appearance. So it's these charters and these academies that are popping up in South Jersey. They're a relatively new phenomenon, I guess you could say, but we've seen with schools like Kip Cooper that they can thrive. We'll see if Thrive Charter can do the same. The next one on this list for December 20th, it's going to be a 4-day stretch in a row where we went to Gloucester, we went to Gloucester Catholic, we stay in Gloucester for 2 days. Then we're down in Pensauken, and now we go all the way down 55 and off of 322 for a classic Gloucester County matchup between the Washington Township Minutemen and the Kingsway Dragons. Kingsway is a school that we visited a lot in the last couple of months just because, they've got some of the best facilities in South Jersey down there. With Brian Kuzmic there as well. This is another very even matchup. Just looking at on paper of their records and stats and head-to-head matchups from last year, um, they still have uh, they still have Williams Bay from last year coming back as a senior. Their leading scorers graduated, but I think with Group 4 schools, those players are pretty, uh, not, I wouldn't say replaceable, because that would be a bit mean to say, but in a Group 1 school, think about it this way. David, you went to Seneca, Group 2, and I went to Audubon, Group 1, where when your star scorer leaves or graduates, I should say, it leaves like a glaring hole on that team. But when you're in a group 4, there's so much to go around that it doesn't maybe hit as hard because those group 4 schools, they have more depth.
Yep.
Depending on how the basketball program is run, they have more depth, they have more versatility just because there's more people and there's more people to go to the tryout, and there's more people that are able to play for this team. So, I mean, yeah, they had their leading scorer out, but the Desir Williams Bay and Micah Hart duo in the backcourt, um, I think it's going to be successful for them. And Todd Powers is a great coach. 10 years at Gloucester Catholic, had an exciting career there, and he's just in his second year at Washington Township. So again, two teams that are similarly around 500. This has been the theme of the day. Let's be honest here. Dan Wilkins Broadcasting has not stepped into the rings of those 30-5 teams yet. We did a little bit last year, but I would rather have consistent basketball between two teams hovering around 500 than teams that are, maybe a little too good for themselves. So, Washington Township and Kingsway, you know, um, excuse me, they return their leading scorer Conrad from last year. I saw him play a couple times last year. He's a very efficient scorer. I mean, you don't do that with 20. I think it was what 22 points per game for Conrad last year. It's only going to get better, right?
Yeah.
If you have a junior season like that, if you have a senior season with 22 points per game, you're going to be getting some college interest. He might be cracking the 25 mark depending on how Washington Township utilizes him this year.
Yeah, Gavin Conrad, he's a senior this year. He's going to improve a lot. And he was great last year. Like you mentioned, a junior last year, senior this year, of course. And for Washington Township, hovering around 500, but they were 6-2 in the Tri-County Royal, which shows to me that they kind of challenged themselves out of conference, which is what you want. It improves your players, improves your morale, maybe, if you win those tough tests. And it's only up from here for Washington Township. It's going to be a great battle in the Royal Division between Kingsway, Clearview, and Washington Township. Washington Township, they were only one game back last year of Kingsway of winning the division. So if you sneak one out against Kingsway or you improve in non-conference, there's a chance that they could become division champions this year.
Very true, David. I think that Tri-County Royal Division, by the way, don't count out GCIT as well. They're going to have their leading scorers back in Mark Hallman as well. And of course, the 6'5", 6'6", sophomore center Charlie Donaldson as well. We'll be talking about them in a minute. We do take a little bit of a break after a 4-day stretch from the 17th to the 20th. Next up on that schedule, before we get to Christmas break, is December 23rd with Gateway and Clayton. Now, this may seem like an odd pairing. Just looking at the records on the bottom of the screen, 2-24 and 4-19. It's a bit of a tough pill to swallow, but most of the reason why we're going to this game is mostly because of Frank Rago's unique offense. Now, Clayton won 4 games last year, but they scored 1,400 points and had almost 900 rebounds. Well, how the heck do you do that? You chuck up threes. I forget, you might know this better than I do, David. The college that scored like they always it's called I think it's called the run and gun offense,
Okay.
where they just jack up threes all day, and like it's basically NBA on steroids, I guess you could say, because they're just three ball, three ball, three ball. They do shifts, excuse me, of 5 guys in, 5 guys out, like every 2 minutes. If you look at Clayton's roster, you're going to see they have at least like 20 players who had varsity minutes last year. and nobody really got more than their fair share. And we did this last year with Clayton. We covered their Martin Luther King Day game versus Maple Shade. That game, David, do you know the final score of that game?
No, I have no idea.
87-80.
Okay.
High school basketball in 32 minutes.
You don't see that often.
You don't. And we actually, so Clayton a couple times last year. I mean, remember they won the sectional championship in 2020. So that run and gun offense, it has worked. But we talked to Frank Rago before, and one of the things that he told us was that there's just sometimes where it works and sometimes where it doesn't. And there's some situations where it just didn't work last year. That's what the 4-19 record is for. If you don't have the guys, he was very blunt about it. If you don't have the guys, you're not going to be successful. So the way that Clayton runs their offense, it's very unique, and it's maybe less about it if you look at it from the perspective of both of these teams have 6 combined wins. That's a bit of a harsh tone to put on it. But then you look at it from Gateway's got a unique offense as well. They had a unique offense last year with Stephen Moore Lachetta basically being the center and the point guard. But you also have somebody who's actually not that bad for a 2 in 2014, Benji Contarino. He's actually he surprised me last year in the little that I saw of him, and he probably could get a couple starting spots at maybe a couple of other colonial schools, but he's the soccer captain over there. There are some schools in South Jersey where the basketball team is almost like a club, and you're just playing to be with your guys. You're not in it for state championships, but you're here to develop friendships and you're here to develop your athleticism. And I'm not saying that Gateway is not going to try to win a state championship this year, but you got to start the bar somewhere, right? So the way it is right now for Clayton and Gateway, they're hanging where they're at. And Clayton is not that far removed from a sectional championship. So I wouldn't be too surprised there to see what happens. But we are going to take a quick break here on DWB as we've got some more Christmas games that we're going to announce, and then a lot more coming right up after this on Dan Wilkins Broadcasting. All right. Somebody, so.
Yeah, we got Ron.
So yeah, admit him to the call. You just got to switch over to the. Well, you also have to mute the mic. mute the microphone? That would help. Got to unmute the microphone. It's why I'm not usually the producer for this one, David. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back here for the Dan Wilkins Broadcasting Basketball Show. It's been a fun night so far, and of course, we have been inching up to the Christmas break. Let's talk about Christmas tournaments. It's always fun to do those. 4 teams, you show up on one day for the first round, you show up on the next for the consolation and the championships. We didn't really do one last year. We did our individual, we did a game the 23rd of December and we did one the 30th of December, but we didn't really do a full tournament. Well, that changes this year. And some of our folks that are tuning in from Gloucester County might be a fan of this one because on December 27th and December 30th, we'll be in the very famous Rob Waddell Gymnasium for the Pittman Holiday Tournament. The 4 teams this year are Pittman, Paulsboro, Triton, and Caravel, the Buccaneers out of Bear, Delaware, which is going to be interesting. That's our first ever out-of-state opponent for basketball that we're covering. So I never realized how convenient NJ.com is until you have to do research on a team from another state. We did some baseball games with Enfield, Connecticut, and I'm just like, how do you guys track your stats? There's nothing here, and I'm just like, every football stat, every basketball stat, all the research that you did, David, for this event on NJ.com. That's an amazing thing. The reporters do an amazing job out there, so we appreciate your work. Probably the subscription that I will probably never take away. But without further ado, let's talk about this tournament. Pittman and Paulsboro, of course, Pittman and Paulsboro played each other in the Group 1 semifinal last year. That was a game that we covered. I think Pittman won that one by like 7 to 10 points. And of course, Pittman won the South Jersey Group 1 sectional last year over Kip Cooper. Such an amazing game. 2 of the top assist leaders in the state, Malik Kelly for Kip Cooper, and of course Elijah Crispin for Pittman, both of them coming back this year. But for Pittman and Paulsboro specifically, Pittman, they lost their backcourt, Sonny Myers and Stephen Devaney. Stephen Devaney playing baseball over at Immaculata now. And they've still got Elijah Crispin, and they've still got some great guys, to shoot the ball around in 2025. So as coming off of a sectional championship, it's not easy to replace your entire front court, I should say. How do you think Pittman's going around this year?
I think Pittman's going to be good. They have a stud in Elijah Crispin, a stud.
And that's putting it lightly.
Yeah, 575 points last game. That's 18.5 points per game. 140 rebounds, 200 assists. In 31 games. Pittman was 23-8 last year, and like you said, they were sectional champions. I don't know if they're going to repeat, but they definitely could because of their stud, Elijah Crispin.
And that also depends on how much how the South Jersey Group 1 shapes out next year with guys like Salem and Audubon and Kip Cooper as well. I mean, Pittman was the number 2 seed, Kip was the number 1, and what happened? They ended up facing each other. We do have a special guest from Pittman tuning in virtually from the Google Meet. Coach Ron Myers is with us this evening. Coach Myers, welcome to the Selection Show. How are you doing tonight?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Doing good. It's always fun to do events like these because we did one for football this past year, and we were like, man, we need some coaches to talk about their team and to hype up their guys. Ron, you guys are coming off of a sectional final and a sectional win from last year. Obviously, did not end in the way that anybody wanted it to, but you guys are going in strong. You lost Devaney, you lost Myers, but you still have a lot of bench depth. And for a small Group 1 school, this is probably the most passionate Group 1 program in South Jersey, at least from who I saw last year. How do you feel? What's your confidence level like going into the season?
I mean, confidence level is high. I'm sure everybody's confidence level is high. Everybody's 0-0. It's a new year. You're putting the pieces back together from what you're coming back with last year. So you have high hopes. We have some nice pieces coming back from last year. Obviously, you mentioned Elijah. We had Michael Pizzacaro. We did lose some size. That's going to be one of our issues this year, kind of see how we're going to replace, Stephen Devaney, Sonny Myers, Port Kostek, and then rebounding aspect of things. But, we're going to score a lot of points, I think. We got some guys who can really put the ball in the basket. So, the guys that were outside, they're going to have to guard our small guys. So, that kind of can be a mismatch for us as well. So it's going to be a year-long thing, trying to figure out how we fix those pieces that we lost from last year, but we'll find a way. We got some guys that are good basketball IQ guys that can shoot the ball, that can play well. They play well together, and we've got veteran experience. We've got 4 guys that have played for 4 years varsity. So they played together. They have a good chemistry together, and I think we'll be okay. We should be able to make a good run here.
Absolutely. And, you guys were the only team in the Tri-County Conference last year to score both 2,000 points and report 1,000 rebounds. Now, of course, that might change this year because you do have, as you said, you lost a little bit of size, having to change that front court up a little bit. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure Mike Fizzicaro is coming back for 2025.
Correct. Yes.
So,
Yes, he is.
that will help. It's not going to be perfect, but nobody's ever going to be perfect.
No.
And for you guys, as South Jersey Group 1 goes, it's always a little bit of a question mark because, Kip Cooper, this was their first season really being classified in that regard. This was their first season in the Burlington County League. And then you guys got to play them on the road in the sectional final. You guys beat them. For you guys, it was the first sectional final in a long time. Sectional win in a long time for Pittman, back since the John and Joe Crispin era. So for you to win that sectional championship with your son, Sonny Myers, as the center, what did that mean for you? And, how will that championship, live on in your, I guess you could say, how will you view that in your coaching career in
Well,
in your mind?
Winning, is fantastic. I mean, you mentioned the Jones I play was on those teams as well. So, the connections between that team, when we played 97, 98, and we won state championships, and then this team winning last year with Elijah Joe's son, with my son on the team being on that team, the connections from those 2 teams there's a lot. Hudson Rue, his dad played, with us in high school. He graduated before that, but these guys are, are kids of friends of mine. You know what I mean? So it's not just every coach loves their kids. But there's a special connection between me and these kids and the kids from last year that graduated in that team because they grew up with my son. I've seen them play since I coached them when they were 5 years old playing football. So the connection to that in a small town, when you get that, it's special because you really play for each other. You're really friends. You're not coming from different middle schools and coming together to big group 4 school, things like that. They grow up together. They know each other. They play, and it really creates for a great chemistry. When you get kids like that and they're good basketball players and they care about each other, I mean, you'll win a lot of games just on that. The X and O's will take care of themselves, but when you get kids that are willing to play together and really play for each other, that's when you're going to have a really successful season. And that's kind of what we did last year. They bought in. I mean, we had practices that were probably harder than games sometimes because they really pushed each other really, really well. And we've had a lot of that so far this year. So, we're picking up kind of where we left off and trying to keep this train moving in the right direction and looking to build on last year.
And like I said, for you guys, Pittman was the only team that scored 2,000 points and had 1,000 rebounds last year. And a big part of that was Elijah Crispin. Obviously, the Crispin family, that's a synonymous name with anybody in Pittman, such a small town community. And he was second in all public school assist leaders with 200 last year. The only guy that was ahead of him was Malik Kelly, and you guys played him and beat him in the sectional final. He had 203. It is what I love to see in South Jersey high school basketball is a traditional offense. That's what I love to see, where you have one guy who can shoot, but he loves to pass the ball. I mean, the fact that Elijah had over 500 points and had over 200 assists, in addition to 63 steals, and even had a couple of blocks. He had everything.
Yeah.
I mean, he really did everything. 73 pointers last year. Him and Fizzicaro combined for 135 3-pointers last year. Obviously, I'm gonna ask a couple of coaches the same question tonight, but one of the big things that I've noticed between the NBA, college, and high school is that 3-point trend seems to be trickling down to the high school level. We saw it start about 10 years ago in the pros with your guys like Steph Curry and stuff like that. Everybody loved those guys, and now I see so many more offenses that are now trained and focused on the 3-point shot. And we see that with guys like Fizzicaro and Crispin on your team. It's 2 main guys, and they're shooting majority of the threes. I mean, Devaney had 38, Tinges had 13 last year, and as we said, the bulk of them were by Crispin and Fizzicaro. So do you think that the play styles of the professionals could influence or maybe has influenced the way that our South Jersey coaches and our South Jersey basketball organizations run their offenses, and
I mean,
if that changes the
absolutely.
game.
The game is ever changing. You're going to learn things. Things are going to evolve as the game evolves, as people find little intricacy that help here and there. The whole analytics thing, people are really buying into. And the fact is, I mean, people are getting better at shooting. When basketball first started, people were not, they're not good shooters. They didn't know. Now, but that you have all these people that have perfected their sports, and with Twitter and with everything on ESPN, and how easily accessible it is. I mean, you can see anything you want in 2 seconds, and you're replicating a move, or you're doing this, or you're doing that, and it's a great tool if you can do it. So it comes to double-edged sword where okay, these kids want to shoot threes, but really should they be shooting threes? So it's the happy medium of the kids getting the shots that need to be the ones shooting basketball, while also making sure the ones that are taking shots aren't taking the Steph Curry 45 footers that shouldn't be taking those ones. You know what I mean? So it's the coaches have to figure that out. And with a Group 1 school, we haven't always been like this. We have to kind of evolve to what our talent level is, and that changes on a yearly basis. You know what I mean? So, we could have a down year, we have an up year. It's not like the bigger schools where you're kind of like plugging and playing. These kids are developing through you have an enormous amount of kids to choose from, and you can just kind of to go. Last year we had size. This year we don't. So we have to kind of adjust our offense for that. And we play to our strengths. And obviously having Elijah is a great weapon to have. He's the court so well. Surrounding him with shooters like Michael Fizzicaro, Craig Peterson, these guys to open the floor up for him, to be able to open driving lanes for him. He's just been such a student of the basketball game. And you talk about the last 10 years, something like this for us kind of happened a long time ago. I mean, if you talk about those teams that I played for with Joe and John. I mean, look at how many 3-pointers we shot. It was a lot. There was games where we hit over 23s in a game. You know what I mean? Between as a team, and it was kind of a trend that we kind of started. And as we got to be adults, that's kind of the way we learned how to play, and we kind of passed it on to our kids. And if you look at that roster from last year, I think there was all but maybe 2 kids hit a 3-pointer from our whole team last year, and there was 13, 14 kids on the roster. So, it's not just, obviously the kids that are better shooters are going to shoot more, but we want everybody to be able to shoot. We want everybody to be respected, and have to come out to that 3-point line to open up the inside for us so that we can kind of attack the basket from that standpoint as well.
It's a good point, and I'll leave you with this one more question before we let you go. You're as we said, you're coming off of a sectional championship. It's an amazing thing for the small town that is Pittman. Like I said, now that I'm in college RCSJ, I'm spending a lot more time in Pittman. And I like to brag about it a lot because everybody loves Pittman, right? It says it on the dang water
That's
tower.
it. Yep.
Everybody likes Pittman here.
Yeah.
But you're coming off of such a heroic season in such an uncertain South Jersey Group 1 bracket. The 1 and the 2 seed meet. Now you win the sectional championship. Now that you're coming off of that and kind of having to start again with those expectations and the confidence being so high, what are you looking forward to the most for this 2024 to 25 season?
Well, I think having a senior heavy team, having the bullseye on your back, being the champion is kind of something we look forward to. We want to take that challenge on. We want the best shot. We want everybody's best shot, because if we're going to have a chance to go and try to win it again and to try to go farther, we need to be playing our best basketball, and we need to be playing against our best competition. So that's why we've ramped up our out conference schedule a little bit. We played some higher, bigger schools, some tougher schedules, just to get us prepared for that. And we did that last year as well, and I think that worked out for us and helped us out. We played Eastern last year. We played Haddonfield. We played a bunch of these schools that are perennial contenders to prepare us for the postseason. And then we got to go into KIPP. It was a great success story for them last year, turn their program around. And that's what happens in Group 1. Any team can pop up. You never know. Small schools, they get a kid coming in. They can make a run. KIPP did that. They should be a very strong team again this year. They got a lot of people back. So that's somebody that we're looking forward if we have to end up meeting them in the playoffs. But we're going to prepare us. We're going to prepare us, battle tested, and we look forward to all the challenges. I mean, these guys don't want cakewalks. They want to come out and they want to be tested, and they want to, improve. And the only way you improve is by playing against better competition. The old saying, iron sharpens iron, right? So if we're able to go out and play good competition and continue to compete at a high level, I mean, that's only going to do us well and benefit us down the line.
It's amazing to hear, Ron. Thank you very much for your wise wisdom. That's always appreciated, and we will see you December 27th later this month versus
Thanks,
the
Dan.
Paulsboro
Appreciate what you
Renegades.
do, man. Keep up the good work. Everybody around here is appreciating what you do and all the hard work you put in. So keep up the good work, man.
I appreciate it, Ron. Thank you very much. We will see you at Christmas time.
Thank
All
you.
right, see
Good
you
luck
now.
this season,
Good
Coach.
night. Bye-bye.
All right, so that was Ron Myers, head coach of Pittman High School. The Pittman Panthers, like we said, 23-8 last year. Really just an amazing season for them, an amazing success story. And, just trying to just figuring out how to run a Group One school is so difficult. And he was talking about it so well, where he had his size last year, now he doesn't. I mean, the tallest guy on his own team was his kid, Sonny Myers, and he was 6'4". Devaney, I think, was an inch lower than him. So a lot of things can change. And we talked about Paulsboro a little bit. Paulsboro and Triton actually played in December of last year in the Boardwalk Classic. Paulsboro lost that game to Triton 54-50. I mean, look, all four teams in this tournament are above 500, and that includes Caravel or Caravel. I mean, caramel, caramel, Caravel. So who knows? But it's going to be fun seeing that out of town, or I should say, out of state competition coming in, because a lot of these teams are now starting to dive back into the out of state competition. We saw it a lot with Camden last year, a little bit with Camden East Side. Kingsway's doing it versus Newman Goretti. Woodbury's doing it versus 3 or 4 schools. I know Gloucester Catholic is playing Shipley. The out-of-state competition is always good to see.
It's good for the sport. Challenges you. It gets you ready for the in-state teams that are good, and these out-of-state teams, especially on the national scale, are very good. We saw Camden last year, and in years prior, they challenged themselves on the national scale. Pretty sure they might have played IMG, maybe.
I don't know if they played IMG, but I know I remember Camden was on ESPN at one point
Yeah.
last year. They were facing it might have been IMG. I'm not sure, but I know they played some schools in Tennessee, some schools from California. I mean, Camden, to be fair, they were more of like a national team.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
I mean that's how it is over there. It's there's really no national teams in baseball. I mean, there's like IMG Academy, but in Jersey that's not really a thing.
Yeah.
So the way it is for these guys right now, there's a lot to be said about the out of state competition. So I'm excited to see Caravel in there, and I'm excited to see what Christmas time has for them. December 27th is the first round of the holiday tournament, and then the 30th is the consolation. So after that, we ring in the new year with some Olympic Conference basketball. David, I know it's not the Olympic Conference basketball that you want, but we do have 2 very good schools, one barely below 500, but still a very good team to watch out for nonetheless. And the orange and white pinstripes, if you will, the Cherokee Chiefs versus the Bishop Eustace Crusaders, January 2nd. Our year opening game, if you will. I mean, Cherokee, we saw them a couple times last year. The first time we saw them, they lost to Bordentown in an upset in the Burlington County tournament. You know, they have some great guys out there. They still have Judd Holt. Judd Holt and Louis Galasso are some of my favorite players to watch in South Jersey. They're incredible. Judd Holt especially. Judd only had 11 and a half points per game, but think about it this way. You have some guys who average 20 to 25 points a night, but that's really that's really what they give you. They give you the points, but they don't give you the rebounding. They don't give you the assists. They don't give you the blocks or steals. He gives you everything. He might not give you 20 and 0, but he might give you 5, 5, 5, 5, and 5. He'll do everything. And same thing with Louis Galasso. I mean, this is a very spaced out team, and they don't really score all that much. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's just how they are. Their first round playoff game versus Cherry Hill East, the final score was 32-29. You'd think it was a football game, but it wasn't. It was a basketball game. And that's all they did. I think it was like 30 combined points in the first half. But Cherokee won 18 games last year. They're a very good team, and Eric Cassidy's a great coach. He is a very humble coach, but he's a very passionate coach. It's a shame we couldn't have him on tonight, but we'll make sure to talk to him at some point during the season as we get ready for that New Year's, well, not New Year's Day, but the day after New Year's Day. What was that movie called? The Day After Tomorrow. That's exactly what it is. But yeah, Cherokee and Bishop Eustace. Bishop Eustace had a big run in the playoffs, and so did Cherokee last year. So a lot of good things to say about both of those teams.
100%. First for Cherokee, you mentioned Glasgow and Holt. They're both back, like you said, and that's all I see is a benefit for the Chiefs. They really did not lose a lot from last season to this season, and their division foes in Eastern and Lenape, they did lose a lot. Lenape lost Ty Dorsett, and Eastern lost their top scorer. So Cherokee 3-5 in the Olympic American last year. I see that trending upwards this season and potentially getting to the division title and uh, improving in Group 4.
Very true. And let's talk about the game that follows that, not staying in the Olympic Conference, but instead heading down to Runnymede in the Tri-County Conference versus a fella team from Franklinville. It's the Delsea Crusaders and the Triton Mustangs on January 3rd. That's going to be a fun one before we go on a little bit of a vacation break. Triton lost their lead scorer, Leon Bagliazzo, last year at over 400 points and over 100 rebounds. But they still have some fun juniors coming back, and they lost Jayon Sanders Cash too. Yandel Santos, a junior who I think can make some noise. Talon Walsh and Kasir Baker in the forward spot. You know, Triton is a team that, like we said, they were 18-11 last year, and Andrew Canizales is a great coach. Like I said, great coaches win great championships. Ron Myers is a great coach. You heard him talk. That was not anything that I was expecting. I was expecting maybe a little bit of like a TV prepared answer. No, he gave you the best of the best right there. And that's what makes a great coach. And great coaches win championships. The great players win great championships too, but great players with bad coaches don't win championships. Bad players with good coaches, maybe you have a shot. That just shows the kind of dilemma that you're in a little bit. But Triton 16-11, Delsea kind of up there in their game as well. Just having very good seasons, and we're seeing this trend with this schedule is that it's a lot of very evenly matched teams. I would rather see, instead of seeing the best of the best, I would rather see two teams that are evenly matched just duke it out. And that's exactly what we're seeing from a lot of these games this year. That's what I really like about the schedule that we made during the past couple of months. Just emailing people and trying to figure out what games will be the best to cover is what games are going to be the best. We had some bad games last year, and sometimes even the players on the teams that played in those games would tell you that it's it's kind of a tough business, but we're able to make it work this year. And Tom Freeman again with Delsea making a lot of noise around South Jersey, and Delsey's a good team. So is Triton. Like I said though, Triton did lose their two best scorers. I think that will be what they have during the Christmas break is going to be a precursor to what we see versus Delsea on January 3rd.
Triton, Carabel, Delaware, out of state. Like we said, that's going to be a test for them before they get Delsea. And then, like you said, they lost. Well, they lost four seniors last year, and two of them were 1 and 2 in points scored on the team in 23 and 24 season. So they're going to need to find younger players to produce and be successful in this upcoming year. And they have a good forward in Kasir Baker. Baker 127 points and 149 rebounds last season in 26 games. And for Delsea, um, they're going to be good again. Uh, yeah, they're going to be good, and Triton's a great test for them. And Delsea's biggest test in conference or in division, sorry, is Timber Creek. Timber Creek had a very good year last year. They're pretty sure they won 20 games or more
They
than
were right
that.
around that ballpark.
Yeah, or more than that. So, Delsea, this is great test for Triton, and then they will get. They need to sneak out a couple wins against Timber Creek, and maybe they can compete for the division.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, look, 22 combined losses between those teams, 18-11 for Delsea and 16-11 for Triton. It's a recipe for success. We do take a little bit of I think it's about a week that we're off on DWB in early January. We then travel on January 9th over to a familiar campus, not the GCIT campus, but the one that's right down the street from there. It's the Deptford Spartans and the GCIT Cheetahs on January 9th from Rowan College of South Jersey, 7:15 start. Now, I should disclose that will be a broadcast run by GCIT. I will be on play-by-play for that on behalf of GCIT. However, that game will not be streamed on Dan Wilkins Broadcasting. We are including it in our schedule because myself and my crew will be involved, but the game will not be under that banner. And GCIT, we saw them for the last game of 2023. Buzzer beater shot. They were down by, I think it was 15 points versus Gloucester. Vince, I think you were there for that. And just crazy stuff all around. Mark Hallman double coverage, hits the 3-pointer. It was one of the craziest shots I had ever seen. And he won the game fair and square. There were some years where GCIT was pretty bad. They were only winning 5 or 7 games a season. Now they're back to 500 again. And I think that we were talking about earlier, I think they will compete in the Royal Division. They have young guys. They have Charlie Donaldson. I really like how Charlie Donaldson plays. He just dominates in the paint. Along with that as well, You've got Mark Hallman. We talked about him before. Mike Stanwood. He's a great part of that team. He is lightning quick. He is fast. He is nimble. He is just going to drive right past you. Whether he's going to shoot a three-pointer or he's going to go for the layup, you don't know. And I don't think anybody else knows either. But it's going to be a four-way race. Maybe not Williamstown, but Kingsway, Washington Township, Clearview, and GCIT, they're all going to compete in 2025.
Yeah, that's probably the best division in the Tri-County, wouldn't you say?
The classic and the Royal probably are my two go-tos when it comes to the Tri-County.
Like you said, for GCIT, Mark Coleman's back. He was very good last season, and he's probably going to lead the way this season. And then Defford, who the GCIT is playing Defford in that game that you were covering. 13-13 last year. They have their top two scorers graduated, however, and 500 year. That's not good for a team that's trying to improve, but I see Defford. I think they can improve. Aiden Koopstick, 234 points last season, 71 rebounds, and they just need to find more scores for Defford to be successful.
I mean, Deptford's a big school. I think that it's something that's very achievable. They can definitely do it. Like I said, with Kingsway, you can lose basically half your starting lineup, and then new guys show up on campus every day, and it trickles down to the elementary and the middle school levels. Those coaches like Mike Valeri, McNeil Rice, maybe not McNeil Rice so much because he's at a tech school, but like Brian Kuzmic, those guys, they probably know who's going to be on their team in the next couple of years. They're not dressing up now, but they will be in 2026, 2027. It's a long path of development, and I think that's going to be something interesting that we'll see throughout the years. So after the break, after GCIT, we then travel the complete opposite direction up to Burlington County for the sectional finalists from last year in South Jersey Group 1. We've been talking about them a lot. It's the Kip Cooper Titans and the Holy Cross Prep Lancers on January 10th. Look, Kip Cooper just continues to kind of shatter records and make things happen. Ron Meyer said, random teams can pop up in South Jersey Group 1 at any time and be successful. This was Kip's first season as a member of South Jersey, I should say, as a member of the Burlington County League. It was their second in South Jersey Group 1 in terms of classification. They won 10 games, went 10-11 in their first year, and then won 23 the next year. Where are they going to go from here? You have one senior that you lost, and that was it. Wasn't even their leading scorer either. So Kip Cooper, I mean, the sky is the limit for them right now. They are a truly phenomenal case study in just how good a charter school can be, especially in Camden. Kind of like you have Camden, you have Camden Eastside. Kip Cooper is kind of like the little brother of Camden and Camden Eastside, that like they're still successful. And that Camden group, they have Camden Academy Charter. They have Leap Academy. Leap Academy was over 500 last year. They took a big step with Gregory Schultz. So a lot can be said about Kip Cooper and where they're going to go. They were undefeated in the Burlington County League. They lost in the sectionals last year. I don't know. I mean, they have the assist leader out of all public schools. I think the only guy ahead of him was a guy from Union Catholic. And I kind of separate Catholic and public schools a little bit. But for Kip Cooper and Holy Cross, Kip is starting to get a little bit out of their comfort zone. They're playing Haddonfield, St. Augustine, Northern Burlington, Cinnaminson. They're playing more, I guess you could say, out there opponents, especially Haddonfield and St. Augustine. They are starting to get a little bit more ambitious. And I think that's going to be fun for Kip this year.
Why not challenge yourself? 22-9
Exactly.
next year, out undefeated in the BCSL, like you mentioned, and like you also mentioned, they lost one senior.
Mm-hmm.
So
One guy.
yeah, one guy from 23 and 24 to now this year in 24 and 25. So why not go out of your comfort zone a little bit, challenge yourself, and I think they can do it. Malik Kelly is a star and very good coach, and Anton Miller.
Yeah, Antoine Miller, he is a great coach, entering his third year at Kip. For a new charter school, it's never easy to find this kind of talent because the kids that are, incredible can say, well, what do you have to offer over Camden and Camden Eastside? What do you have to offer over Leap Academy? And Kip is able to stand out now. They have that resume to say, hey, we can play good basketball. These guys play very sound, very fundamental basketball. They don't shoot a lot of threes. They run a very traditional offense. And Antoine Miller, it's tough love on his guys. And he ends up, creating a great product where, kind of that friendship that they grow ends up making a great deal. And Kip Cooper is hopefully going to have a very successful season next year. So next on the schedule after that, we have our third of a three-game stretch over in Gloucester County. As it's two familiar foes, we've talked about them before, so we will keep it brief. Gloucester Catholic and Washington Township on January 11th. This is kind of a homecoming game for Todd Powers. Last year, Todd Powers, who of course longtime former coach at Gloucester Catholic, came back to GC for the first time since leaving. Now Powers, in his second year, continues to schedule Gloucester Catholic as an out-of-division opponent, and this time Washington Township will be the host instead of the visitor. So now we're going to move along to January 13th. We are going to get things moving a little bit here since we do have a lot of games to talk about, and we are right now at the 6:30 mark. So, yeah, we've been here for a little while. We get it. But my alma mater is going to make two appearances back to back, both on the road and in two very different places. On January 13th, it's going to be the Audubon Green Wave and the Cinnaminson Pirates. Two teams well over 500 last year. First time Audubon is playing Cinnaminson since 2013. And Audubon is going to be coming into this game without their two leading scorers from last year, Ryan Johnston, who is now over at Rowan, and Caleb Eller, who also was a big three-point threat, had one of the lowest arcing three-point shots I ever saw, but it worked out amazing. They still have a lot of great guys from last year. Liam Nixon, great scorer, and a good corner specialist as well. He's a very lanky guy. He's tall. He doesn't have, no offense to Liam if you're watching, but he doesn't have all that muscle. That's not necessarily a bad thing because he's fast. And they have another new guy that I just learned his name last week, Mike Bittner. He is a freshman this year coming into Audubon. He's going to be running the center. And of course, how about Connor Chester? He had, I think it was 16 blocks, something like that. He was up near like 30 blocks, and he only played half of the games because of an injury. He is going to be somebody who is poised to break out this year for Audubon, and this is a team that has been to the lowest of lows. There were some times where they were winning 3 to 5 games a season. Now they're back. But the question is, can they hold on to that momentum? Because they had been hanging around 500 for a couple of years. Now they're starting to make that leap. But can that leap stick, or will they take another step back? Azon Young, there were rumors of him transferring. Now he's staying home in Audubon. He's an amazing scorer.
The guy,
Would love to hear your take on the alma mater.
the guy averaged a double-double last year, Azon Young.
Yeah,
He's a sophomore.
He's crazy good. And I've watched him play almost every night last year.
Um, they lost in the quarterfinal round last year to Wildwood. Wildwood had a very surprising year last year.
And Wildwood, well, Wildwood lost a lot of guys too. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if that happens this year, I don't know, where that's going to go. But they lost a lot more guys than Audubon did.
But Audubon, like you said, Wildwood lost more. Audubon didn't really lose that much, and they have a lot of stars back this year. 17 wins last year. That's a lot, and probably around the same amount this year for the Green Wave.
And for Cinnaminson, 23-6 last year, you got the South Jersey Splash Bros. Drew Harvey, Noah Harvey, both accounted for, I think it was 133 points last year. They were over half of Cinnaminson's three-pointers, and this is a team that likes to shoot 3-pointers. And South Jersey Group 2 is kind of a bit of a basket case because who's going to beat Camden and Middle Township? Nobody, nobody, right? So Cinnaminson was kind of the next guy in. They were the 3 seed, and they were kind of doing their own thing. And Mike Fries is a crazy good coach, and with how good they were in Liberty, this was one of the most efficient scoring teams in South Jersey that didn't make it to a sectional final. So I think Audubon and Cinnaminson, Audubon is getting ambitious again. They started that last year. They were playing Washington Township. They were playing these big Group 3 and 4 schools for the first time in a long time. They weren't that ambitious before. Now the athletic department there is starting to get more ambitious. I talked about it with Woodbury. The trend is now, if you're a Group 1 school, you have to prove your worth against the Group 3s and Group 4s and non-publics. And seems like everybody's doing it. Everybody likes to, chuck their non-conference games full of teams that are far away. It's the new thing. It's been there for a little while, but the ambition sometimes just isn't there between some teams. And now, especially for Audubon and Woodbury this year, and you could argue Pittman as well, in those Group 1 programs, they're playing up. They're playing up to their competition. They're playing these Group 2s, 3s, and 4s that they otherwise really wouldn't play in another scenario. But because these teams are good and they got to prove their worth, that's exactly how they got to do it. Audubon stays on the board for January 16th versus the Gloucester Lions. We talked about Gloucester before with Coach Liam James entering his 6th season. His adopted son, Ryan James, a great heartfelt story there. But also Keegan Cohen averaged 20 points a game last year. He is going to be just he's going to be wild. I mean, they might as well give him the ball on almost every possession just because he is that good. Lights out shooter from deep. He can probably take some of the most complicated shots that you'll see and turn them into buckets. And he's good in the lane, too. He's a very versatile guy. And he's going to be. Well, this is a matchup we saw last year. Audubon won that game by, I think it was 15. But rosters change, predicaments and circumstances change. So I don't know how it's going to be, but we didn't get to talk about Gloucester too much. We were more talking about Woodbury in that first instance. But I mean, Gloucester's a very good team, and even though they lost in the first round of the playoffs, they were the 11 seed in South Jersey
They
Group
lost to a
1.
good Overbrook team.
Yeah, I mean, Overbrook was just ahead of them that night.
Um, yeah, Overbrook was good, like I said last year, but this Gloucester Audubon game that we're talking about here, it these two teams are very similar. Returning players that are good, uh, didn't lose too much from last year to this year, and it should be a very entertaining game. And both teams should have success in this upcoming year, in my opinion.
And next on our schedule, after the January 16th game, we take a little bit of a break and then go back to Cherokee, back to the North Gym, as they like to say. Imagine a school having like, what do they have, 3 or 4 gyms? Something like that. Cherokee's massive,
Yeah,
but this is coming from a guy who's graduating class with 123. So we've got Shawnee and Cherokee. Shawnee, they are now entering the Dylan Fields era. Joe Kessler, one of the greatest head coaches of all time. South Jersey, probably, I think he's 6th all time in wins. You don't get much better than Joe Kessler. So Dylan Fields has a lot on his plate, and he has massive shoes to fill. After an 18-10 season last year, it's kind of like it almost feels like Kalen DeBoer's first season at Alabama. You don't know how it's going to go.
reminds me of Coach K to John Schreier.
You're right, yeah. Um, and in basketball, the way it works here is, you have a team that there are some seniors who have been playing their entire high school, maybe even middle school career, knowing Joe Kessler.
Yeah.
And now he's out. He's retired. So the way it is for Dylan Fields, he has massive shoes to fill. And I think that if they change the offense too sharply from what Joe Kessler taught his guys, it might not end well for Shawnee. Not to say they won't be good, but I think that the players kind of have this muscle memory to working under the Joe Kessler offense, and now things might change a little bit. And I think Dylan Fields, like I said, massive shoes to fill and a lot of expectations going into 2024.
Yeah, you mentioned Dylan Fields, the new coach there. You mentioned him. He's going to have big shoes to fill, but so are the players
Mm-hmm.
because Ryan Seneff and Zan Buzar, probably their 1 and 2 players, they're not there anymore. And they're going to have Ryan Seneff, his ability to draw fouls in the paint was incredible last year. He got to the line a lot. They're going to have to find a replacement for that and get to the line this year to gather up points. And Zane Bouchard, he was a great 3-point shooter, and they're going to have to fill that shoe. And they're young, but I think they can do it, and it'll be interesting to see how they compete with Dylan Fields in year 1.
I mean, like we said, great coaches win championships, and replacing their number 1 and number 2 scorers, that is going to be a tall task. And Cherokee, I think, at this point in the season, we're about halfway through the season right now, or I should say, at this point in the schedule, we're actually past the halfway point of the season. It's going to be a big test. When we see Shawnee for the first time, people will already know if the Dylan Fields era will be something to note. Um, Outside of Joe Kessler, like we said, first year as an Olympic Conference head coach, you are throwing your feet into the fire. It is not easy. So next up on the list is going to be January 27th. Woodbury, and Gloucester Catholic. Now, we do have a special guest, Brandon Doherty. He is going to be coming on the show in just a minute, but we have to get that set up first on the good old Google Meet. So we'll be right back in just a minute here on the DWB Basketball Selection Show. All right, well, first of all, mute.
Garden State Pet Center is an independently owned full-service pet store. Our specialty is promoting companionship between people and animals by providing the healthiest product choices available, including all-natural foods, supplements that support and relieve health issues, and innovative products for pet parents. Our goal is to provide our customers with a relaxing environment, and while we're not striving to be the biggest store on the East Coast, we're striving to be the best. No other pet store will make you feel at home like we do. At Garden State Pet Center, we view pets as members of the family. We don't believe in fast, high-pressure sales, but instead matching up the right pet with the right owners, as you are making a lifelong commitment. Together with our team members, we would like your visit to our store to be both enjoyable and educational. Simply drop in and take a look around. View the birds, reptiles, small animals, toys, food, cages, and miscellaneous items. Learn of the services we have to offer and decide for yourself if this is the store you'd like to call your home away from home.
Victor Santucci, owner of Garden State Pet Center. Visit us today at 226 South Whitehorse Pike in Audubon, New Jersey. We're open 7 days a week for all of your pets' needs.
I have to change it up a little bit
He
just
goes
because,
he goes to unfamiliar
things.
territories.
Yeah, I know. When we have when we have a special guest around, we have to change things up. But anyways, January 27th got a fun matchup coming around the bend. Not sure if it showed up on our. Let's see if it showed up on our graphics. I don't think it did. Let's see. Maybe it didn't. I don't know. It's not up there, but we don't have a graphic for it, unfortunately. That's a quality control error on my part, but we do have Woodbury and Gloucester Catholic, January 27th, and we have somebody to talk about it. It is Brandon Doherty, the head coach of Gloucester Catholic, coming off of a non-public B semifinal appearance last year, with a loss to Bishop Eustace, but a very proud season for his Tri-County club and in the Tri-County Classic Division, one of the toughest divisions in South Jersey. Brandon, you guys had a lot of adversity last year and a very unique team. Something that sticks out to me is a guy like Billy Janipro, running like the power forward and center spot. He was a star to watch last year, but also a guy like Jack Mastero, reaching 1,000 points as a junior. He's going to be back for his swan song in 2025. Your thoughts and maybe either your expectations or maybe your confidence level going into this 2025 campaign.
Well, good to see you again, Dan. Thanks for having us on, or thanks for having me on. Excuse me. Good to be back with you, and excited for basketball season. It's cool you guys are doing this, and I'm glad to see that you'll be back in the gym, and excited to have you guys on the 27th. Yeah, we had a really good year. My first season as a head coach. Always tough to go into something like that and know what to expect. But we really challenged ourselves with a really hard schedule. I think that kind of paid off towards the end of the season, both in terms of preparing us for the playoffs, as a team, but also putting us in a good situation where we were able to have that game at home. We were able to have a game before that at home. As you guys saw, and you came to our gym a couple times last year, and you'll see on the 27th with Woodbury, Gloucester Catholic Gym is one of the best places to play in South Jersey. It's such an awesome atmosphere. It really gives us a home court advantage. Last year we had 5 seniors, kind of leading our team along with 2 juniors. We were very, a very seasoned roster with a lot of experience. Now graduating 5 seniors, what we've seen over the summer and what we've seen in the fall and this week is, that's really hard to replace. Luckily for us, we still have 2 starters coming back who will be seniors. Jack Mastero, as you mentioned, was one of the best players in South Jersey last year. We're counting on him to be even better this year for us. And then Carlos Mendez is a guy who has been starting consistently since his sophomore year, even had a couple starts, and played a role for us as a freshman. And he's been a great leader. It's nice to have that kind of guy as your point guard where you can trust that the team will be in good hands. Especially as we're surrounding those 2 guys with guys who are very new to the varsity roster. We actually don't really have anybody who played a lot of minutes for us last year in our rotation. We have a couple guys who were really solid JV players for us who, got a couple, games under their belt at the varsity level, but not a lot of close experience, definitely not playoff experience. And we have a couple of freshmen who are coming in and competing for spots and really, it's this week has been a very cool week about competition. But it's funny how often I keep kind of bringing up to these guys this week of like, hey, you have a lot of big shoes to fill, because guys like you mentioned, Billy Ginipro or Trey Battle, who was a all-conference player or Kyle Golden, who was a 3-year starter for us, or Nick Calzanetti and John Colacoyo. Those were all guys that were really kind of a big part and glue to our team. So it's been exciting to see how this all shakes out. I keep telling my assistants, there hasn't been a year like this where I've gone in not knowing as much about my team as I do this year. From when last year being different, but even as an assistant, Usually you kind of go in with a pretty good idea of who's going to slot in where and what this looks like. We kind of went in with a very open approach of like, we're going to let guys compete. And it's been very interesting, a cool first week. We're looking forward to next week where we get some scrimmages under our belt, see how guys hold up when, we're going against somebody else. And hopefully we're ready by the beginning of the season. It's such a short preseason now. It's crazy. I was just talking with a couple other coaches about how it just feels like you don't have much time to get some stuff in, but the games will be on us before we know it. And, we'll be off and running.
We're only 14 days, actually only 12 days until the official season starts on December 17th. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you're right. It's so short these days. But this is your second season as head coach of Gloucester Catholic, and of course, last year, trying to figure things out as you go. Now you're settled in. You've had a full season under your belt, and the players know now what they are expected of from you.
Hmm.
And now that you have those returning guys, even some of the freshmen and sophomores that didn't get a lot of minutes or any minutes, and now they're starting to get put in these rotations. How do you feel just on a personal level now that it's your first I guess you could say full off season because you got
Hmm.
promoted last year in the summer, and
Yep.
now you've got an opportunity to really build up this roster in year two, knowing and maybe learning from what didn't work in year one. How do you feel just personally going into your second year at Gloucester Catholic?
It's definitely a lot easier in terms of you have a little bit of a game plan that you can follow for when you want to hit certain benchmarks. By the first scrimmage, you want to be able to, even though it's such a small and a short time frame, it is a little bit more like a marathon. It's okay. We're scrimmaging against a new coach, Mike Ricci, and at Highland on Monday, and I'm fine going in there now, not having, maybe a zone offense ready or not having, maybe having one inbounds play and knowing that, okay, we still have time and, we want to just kind of focus on what we're good at. So I think one thing that changed for me in my approach was being able to say, okay, let's, let's compact the scope a little bit, give them, give our kids, especially, with kids who, like last year we had a lot of returners, but I was running was probably a little bit different than Jason. So, it was new to them. This year, for the guys who are back, a bit more comfortable with it because we're a little bit more consistent in terms of how we're gonna, run our offense or run our defense. But the new, we have a bunch of new guys who haven't seen it as much. So it feels like it's in the same place. But what I definitely have changed is, you know, let's let's keep it small. Let's do a few things really, really well in the beginning of the season. And even if that means we have to go into our first game without everything at our disposal, I definitely learned last year that it's okay if, you know, by January you still need that third motion offense or, that third defense. We were putting stuff in. If you asked me in the beginning of last season, I would have thought by the first game we have our entire playbook in offensively and defensively. And then all of a sudden, I kind of didn't notice that we added stuff in January. We added stuff even in February, based on the opponent, based on how our team was playing, what we thought was best for the team. So you learn more about the team throughout the season than I probably anticipated. Even though I had been an assistant for a while, maybe I just didn't think about it like that. So I'm kind of going into this season knowing, hey, we can, we have more time, even if it's not for the first game, we can put some stuff in because the goal is not necessarily be the best version of yourself on December 17th or December 18th. It's can you grow and build and be the best version of yourself by the time we hit late February.
It's great to hear. And you were talking about before not knowing everything. Sometimes it's not the end of the world. These are
Yeah.
these are all high school kids, and
Yeah.
it's not an NBA offense where you've got 50 plays to remember, and
Hmm.
it can be very different. And it's sometimes intimidating for a first year head coach to go in there, after how many years the guy before you was there, and you're like, well, what do I do now? Like the
Hmm.
floor is mine and I don't know what to do with it. So back when Jason Curbison was there, and a lot of things can change, personnel, assistants, and players especially. But now you're a little bit settled in. So, um, what would you say, personally, your expectations are for your team, and for yourself going into the season?
Well, we start every season, the first meeting we have, we set a high bar and say that, our goal every year is to try to win a state championship. It's been over 50 years since we've won a state championship in basketball at the school. And, whether anyone else thinks it's realistic or not, that's still our goal. We know that's a really tall task with some of the great teams in our bracket, even just the South Jersey bracket, let alone the state bracket. St. Rose was probably the best team in the state last year. Uh, that would have been the team that we would have faced in the South Jersey final. They graduated a number of players, but they still got a number of players back. And then even just a little bit more locally, Bishop Eustace is a team that's super strong. They're bringing everybody back. St. Joe's Hamilton should be very good. Wildwood Catholic's going to be improved this year. Trenton Catholic is probably going to bounce back. So, we still set that goal. We also want to build on the success we had last year. Last year, we made it into our conference, the A bracket of our conference tournament. We snuck in as the 8th seed, and took a tough loss to the number 1 seed Timber Creek, but we felt that was a building block. We want to try to get there again. Maybe potentially win that first round game and advance a little bit further. We'd like to win our conference, or division of our conference. Last year you mentioned, kind of sneakily, considering how many small schools are in there. The classic division of the Tri-County was probably one of the better divisions in South Jersey. Certainly, I think the best division in Tri-County. We had 4 teams in that A bracket. Wildwood, Salem, very, very strong. Pittman won Group 1. This year, we think we can compete with those teams. We saw a few, we competed against Pittman in a fall league. We kind of know who those guys are back. It's a little bit of familiar, rivalry. A lot of our guys train together and practice together. But if we look at some of the other teams in our conference, they also, like us, were hit pretty hard with graduation. So we'll be interested to see what those teams look like. But we still try to keep those same expectations. Wins and losses, probably haven't thought about that yet. I don't know what would be considered a great record for us. We're just hoping that, like I said, we can be the best versions of ourselves. We want to win the games we feel like we should win when, if we play well. And if we play well and we lose, then so be it. And we're just hoping that by the time we hit February, when we get to those tournament games, that we're the best version of ourselves.
That's always great to hear. Brandon, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it. We'll see you guys on, I believe it's December 18th versus Glassboro, and then we'll
Mm-hmm.
also see you later on in the month of January versus Woodbury, and then we'll also see you on the road for the Todd Powers Reunion 2.0 versus
Awesome.
Washington Township. So it's excellent to hear. Thank you for joining us tonight, and best of luck in your season.
Thank you. Appreciate you for
Thank you,
having
Coach.
me,
Good
and
luck.
looking forward to see you guys at those games.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Brandon.
All right, bye.
All right, so that was Brandon Doherty of Gloucester Catholic. We are going to take one more commercial break, and then we will be back for a straight run to the finish at February 15th here on Dan Wilkins Broadcasting coverage of the Basketball Selection Show.
I mean,
We have returned from Dan Wilkins Broadcasting Studio, shifted a little bit to the left by like 6 inches, but we do have a straight run to the finish for this DWB Basketball Selection Show. A lot of good picks already. We just heard from Brandon Doherty, head coach of Gloucester Catholic. We've also heard from Ron Myers earlier in the night. Unfortunately, weren't able to get in touch with the other coaches we were supposed to have on the show tonight, but we do have a straight run to the finish for 7 final games in 2025. On January 29th, we'll start with this Burlington County tilt between Burlington Township and the Falcons and the Cinnaminson Pirates, two teams with 20-plus wins from last year. We talked about Cinnaminson a little bit already, but let's talk about those Falcons. Lacey Walker, division champions for the Patriot Division last year, lost in Central Jersey Group 3 to Ewing. A lot to be excited about for these guys. And top scorer last year graduated, but a lot of good returning players on their depth and in the 2 or 3 options. It's a lot to be excited about for the Falcons this year.
Yeah, should be a good year for the Falcons in the BCSL. Again, like you said, they were division champions last year, and they have returning players like Irving Singletary. He's back, and like I said, it's going to be a good year for the Falcons and beyond. They have a lot of talent, and they have the guys they need that have the experience.
A little bit over, Jake. No, other way. Oh my goodness, we are really professional here at DWB. But yeah, I mean, good point, David. You know, it's always good to see two 20-plus win teams facing off. Uh, we're having a lot of fun around here. This show is running way over schedule. We do have 6 more games though. Another Burlington, I'm sorry, not Burlington County, Gloucester County matchup. Bishop Eustace and Washington Township. We've talked about Todd Powers before. We've talked about Bishop Eustace in some capacity this year. Of course, Semareglio, their top scorer from last year. A lot to be excited about. Again, a lot to be excited about there for Bishop Eustace. Uh, a team that we talked about before a little bit, West Tech, 8-18. They are playing Haddon Heights on January 31st. That'll be another 3-day run with Burlington Township on the 29th, Washington Township on the 30th, and then Haddon Heights 14-13 last year, bringing Mason Drum back for a senior campaign. He's an excellent scorer. And the big thing about Haddon Heights is that they are losing Mike Ritchie. A little bit controversially, but they lost him after 16 years at the position. He's now at Highland now. They've got big shoes to fill. Almost, their hand was forced a little bit there. So, um, Haddon Heights, they've got a lot to be excited about, but things are obviously going to be a little bit different going into 2025. Last 4 games. Camden Eastside and Woodbury. We talked about with Woodbury before the out of conference schedule being stronger than it's really been in a long time since Woodbury was state champion contenders in 2018 and 2019 with Mark DeRogeris's first consecutive, or I should say, first non-consecutive coaching tenure. Camden Eastside 19 wins last year, and Woodbury's hanging around 500. Pretty simple stuff, but always good to see those guys hanging around again and seeing some local competition from the Olympic now facing off in the Colonial Conference. And of course, this is going to be my favorite game of the year. February 6th, Gloucester Catholic and Pittman. That's going to be nice. That's going to be really nice. We talked with Brandon Doherty and we talked with Ron Myers. They both mentioned Gloucester Catholic. That is a fierce rivalry, and it's a good rivalry. It's not a hostile rivalry, but it is a fun rivalry. Everybody loves to be there. Those gyms are packed. It's going to be packed in Pittman, and it's going to have more space than Gloucester Catholic, of course. So it'll be fun in the Pittman Gym and the Rob Waddell. We'll make sure Grant Shivers has some space for us up there. But we've talked about those teams in great length tonight. 2 teams that we haven't talked about is our February 12th game, Florence and Delran. 2 sub-500 teams from last year, but they're bringing back Shane Kingsborough for another shot with Delran and Florence, of course, with Cesar Pareda as the head coach, or Cesar Pareda as the head coach. Like we said, both teams, couple games under 500, but a lot of room for improvement. I really like Delran's offense with Arik Smith. They only won 8 games in 2023. They upped the ante this year. Now they're starting to again play some more lucrative out of conference opponents. They play Audubon again. I think it's the 3rd or 4th year in a row they've played Audubon. And Delran, like we said, they like to be they like to be ambitious a little bit. They play in the Delran gym where it gets loud sometimes. People are passionate in that town, and they lost in Central Jersey Group 2 to Del Val in the first round, but I think there's a lot of potential for Delran to be good this year.
100%. These two teams you see on your graphic there are similar record last year, than 1 game difference, and they're similar this year. Have their top guys back. Didn't lose much, and it should be around the same for both these teams. And this is a great game.
Absolutely. And then our last game for the 2024 to 25 season is going to be a fun one. It is Mainland Kingsway. Mainland, our first Cape Atlantic team and our only Cape Atlantic team to get coverage this season, 26-7. Of course, they made it all the way to the sectional or state semifinal, I should say, in Group 3, won the South Jersey Group 3 final, lost to Freehold Borough. They're a darn good team, and they're in the toughest division in the Cape Atlantic cities, right up there with them.
So,
They split their two games last season, and Cohen Cook, he's out, but it is again, Mainland's one of those schools where they can kind of just produce basketball players on the spot,
they
and
produce athletes.
yeah, now they do have a new head coach. No more Dan Williams. They do have, excuse me, Dan Feld now as the head coach. So I'm excited to see what they can do versus a very, very good Kingsway team that I think they can hold their weight against, and it should be a good game to close out the regular season in non-conference play.
Yeah, and you'll get to see by the time we get there, we'll see where these teams have competed uh, and produced for the entire season, and we'll see if Mainland can try to battle adversity without Cohen Cook, who, in my opinion, probably one of the best athletes to go through Mainland.
Absolutely. I mean, there's plenty of great athletes to go through Mainland, and um, I'm going to be excited to see how their basketball team works out this year. But with that being said, that wraps up our 2024 to 2025 DWB selection show for the basketball season. Ran quite a bit over the scheduled mark, but it's okay. You guys all got to see what games we're covering this year in 2024 to 2025. We're going to have a good season. From our entire crew here at DWB, behind the camera, Jake Steidler, on the production, Vincent Folk, to my right, David Cohen. I'm Dan Wilkins. We will see you, I believe, next week for our next broadcast. We've got a little bit of a break till then to enjoy this cold, cold weather. Have a good one, folks.